Alright, so to start things off here, we have the ASRock X99 Extreme 4 motherboard. We chose this motherboard because at this price point, it's probably the best balance of features and performance. As you can see, the back of the box here pretty much tells you all the information about it. If you need more information about it, go ahead and Google it. This is not a motherboard review, just merely an unboxing to get things going, obviously. But you can see here, they do include a pretty good range of accessories in the box. Let's go ahead and take a look what they have in here. This is a, just going to remove everything here first. So over here we have the SLI bridge. This is for only 2 cards. It's the sturdy version, not the stuff made out of the cables, so that's pretty nice. And they also do include a 3-way SLI bridge here. Let's take it out. Alright, as you can see, it is an ASRock 3-way SLI board also. They do not include any Crossfire, but typically you'll get those when you buy a AMD board. And here we have the HDD saver cables, SATA cables. It includes, I believe it's 6 or 4 SATA cables, 2 of which are right angled. And then we have the back plate, and then obviously your documentation, a software setup guide, and a complete hardware, or a quick installation guide I should say. Includes the disk and stuff in there. The motherboard is pretty well packaged, as you can see. Let's go ahead and remove it here. This board does have a couple cool features. As I mentioned earlier, it's an X99 board, so it's only compatible with the Intel LGA 2011 version 3 socket. It is not backwards compatible to the 2011, older 2011 socket. It has 8 RAM slots, so it's able to hold a maximum of 128 gigabytes of RAM, even though I don't think anyone is making 16 gig sticks, but it's completely possible. We have 4 PCI Express slots, 3 of which are X16 and 1 of which is 2.0 X16 I should say. So 3 3.0s, and yeah. And so here we have the 5820K processor. This is the 6-core processor with only 28 lanes, compared to the 5930 and 5960, which are 8-core processors with 40 lanes. Let's go ahead and open her up here. Obviously nothing special as with all Intel processors. Just a box that includes the processor and some documentation, and that's practically it. Nothing big. This processor, since it's 28 lanes, when you do run an SLI or Crossfire, one of your cards will run at full X16, while the other one runs at X8. If it was a 40 lane, they'd both run at X16, but in this case it's a 28 lane processor. And next we can move on to our liquid cooler here. We decided to go with the liquid cooler in case we do any overclocking, and also to kind of keep things a bit quiet around the case. So we went with the Corsair H100i. Basically, it's a self-contained liquid cooler with two fans, or dual radiator, I should say, design. This is the I version. I'm not sure what I stands for. I like to think it stands for intelligent, but you know, basically means that you can control, for example, the lighting, fan speeds, and stuff from the Corsair Link application on your computer. As you can see here, it comes with two fans. These are 120 millimeter fans, and then you get your mounting screws here for both AMD and Intel socket, and then you have your mounting brackets. That one over there, I'm not sure what it's for, but I believe it's an AMD. I'm not 100% sure. And then here we have the cables, obviously. And then we have the radiator itself. As you can see, just typical 120 millimeter by 275 millimeter radiator. The CPU cooler does come with that stuff on it. Escapes my brain right now, but thermal paste pre-installed. There you go. This is the case we're going to be using. It's a Corsair Obsidian 750D. We did have a lot of the parts put in an EVGA NEX 750B semi-modular power supply. We do have a 1 terabyte Seagate hard drive in there, and a SanDisk SSD back there, and some of the wiring already pre-routed so that when we put things in, it's a breeze. Alright, putting in the CPU, obviously just remove the clips. It looks like the bottom one, or the one on the, I guess, top, has to come off first to remove this second clip. You do not need to remove the plastic thing just yet. Make sure that the triangle on the motherboard, that black one, and the triangle, the white triangle on the processor are aligned or pointing the same direction, basically. Otherwise you might mess stuff up. And when you put it in, yes, it is orientated upside down for whatever reason. That's just how they chose to do it. And just go ahead and put it on. And make sure that they're all securely locked in there to keep things from moving. Alright, And then moving on, we're going to go ahead and get the motherboard installed on the computer. The first thing you do is install the back plating. It is a bit tight in this case. Just push it in and it'll click into place. Then once you've got that portion in, we go ahead and put the actual motherboard in. If you'll notice in the middle there's a little stub thing. When you align it in, you want to make sure that the stub thing comes up in the middle, right below the processor toward the right. I'll show it to you right there, that thing right there. Make sure that it's in and tight, and then go ahead and install your screws, and make sure everything is aligned before you do start screwing stuff. And so depending on your motherboard or how your case is set up, you might be using 8 to 10 screws depending on how things are set up. But I'll go ahead and speed this up. As you can see, you might want to use a bit more magnetic screwdriver. Mine was a magnetic inverse, so I kept on dropping the screw countless times. Kind of embarrassing. In my case, there was one screw hole that wasn't used. And after that, go ahead and install your liquid cooler. Mounting is going to be up to you. We wanted to do a push configuration where, or I guess a pull configuration actually, where the CPU or the fans pulled air from the outside past the radiator and into the case, pretty much. So the screws provided are long enough to do that. Alright, then the next portion is to install your CPU cooler. We do have, the CPU cooler does have a couple cables that need to be hooked up. For example, the fan do need to get hooked up with a fan cable that is provided, since they don't get hooked up directly to any motherboard fan headers. So for the 2011 or 2011 V3, install the clip first. It is magnetic, so it'll hold on down, and then install your screws beforehand, and then basically stick it on top. Make sure you press and hold it to minimize any movement, and then screw it in. I'm using the provided thumb screws. Make sure that you do follow the instructions. Each motherboard is going to be different, but in this case, installation was pretty straightforward since the bracket comes actually pre-installed on the motherboard. It makes things a bit easy. Make sure that you do install your fan headers and the SATA power cable, which we routed through the back. Next, you want to do is install your iLink cable, or I guess the Corsair link cable. It's basically a USB cable, hooks up on the side of the CPU bracket, and then gets plugged into an open USB header. My motherboard had two headers, USB 2.0 headers, so one went to the front, and obviously the other one to the CPU cooler. And then so go ahead and hook up your cables. In this case, we also have the HD audio, which goes into one of your ports, in this case on the extreme left of the motherboard. Make sure that you're plugging them in aligned properly, otherwise you could bend pins and that's not fun. And then we'll go ahead and install, we have Corsair Ballistic Sport DDR4 RAM. In this build we're only using 2 sticks for a dual channel setup, but in the near future here we will be upgrading to 4 sticks for a total of 16 or maybe 32 in quad channel mode. So go ahead and install those. Make sure the clips in the back are opened, and then just firmly press in the sticks. Feels like you're gonna break them, but you don't actually break them. And then we went ahead and installed a actually NVIDIA R9 290X with a custom Arctic Extreme CPU cooler on it. And go ahead and install your power to your graphics card. Alright, and everything was successfully plugged in, so we did a startup test. And everything looks like it started up properly. As you can see, the Corsair logo does light up, and it does do multiple colors. It's a RGB LED back there, and you can customize what color and what kind of pattern it lights up in the Corsair Link software. The first time you turn it on, the fans do turn on in max mode, and then they basically calm down. And as you can see, things worked. I did go ahead and get everything set up, so we just logged in and we're good to go. And that's how you get some of those parts installed and working.